And we're live. Hello and welcome to Alfresco Tech Talk Live. This is episode 98, getting close to episode 100. Today's topic is the hackathon review. We had the Global Virtual Hackathon a few weeks back, and we've been keen to show the results and the fruits of what we did there. There was lots of participants, and I'm excited to hear more about it, what everyone did and what the day was like, and all the progress you guys have made. You'll notice we have a great panel today, and I'll introduce everyone in just a second. But first off, just a couple of announcements. The first big one is that we now have a new product evangelist, Francesco Cortis, who you probably all know. So big welcome to Francesco. Really happy to have you on board. You know, we're all clapping for you. Super excited to have you on board. And Francesco, you'll get a chance to introduce yourself in just a little bit. But Francesco takes over my job of being developer evangelist. We had to change the title to product evangelist, but don't get me wrong, it's still very much the same kind of things he'll be doing, and I'm just super excited to have him. So really, really great. I've got the same question over and over again since we announced this last week. Does this mean you're leaving the community? Why are you leaving the community? Me, personally, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still involved with the community, but I will be handing off some of responsibilities, like Tech Talk Live, to Francesco, so he can do that. I'll still be blogging. I'll still be in IC. I'll still be in the new community portal. And so I'm not going anywhere. I'm just changing roles inside Alfresco. So that's the first announcement. The second announcement, Richard, I believe you'll talk a bit about that, community edition release.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Richard Espelin. I'm product manager for the ECM product at Alfresco. To Oli's point, I used to be the one running TikTok Live, so it's glad to see it moving through, and I'm still very involved. We did a community edition release in September. It's an early access release because it mostly contains REST APIs. There are a couple new nice features in Share, but the REST APIs are still maturing, so we marked it early access. Interest in feedback. Don't know if we'll have anything. We're still deciding if we're going to push out in October release. If we do, it'll just have some bug fixes and Share. And then we're shooting for a more complete, bigger release in November. So that's the current plan.
All right. And Kristen, how about you introduce yourself and talk a bit about events?
Hey guys, I'm Kristen Gastaldo. I am the community manager for our new social community, as Richard likes to call it, the platform where we've moved the wiki and the blogs and the forum to. We are bringing back Tech Talk Lives and office hours to be monthly again. So our next Tech Talk Live will be on November 9th. We're going to try to stick with that first Wednesday of the month. And then our next office hours will be on October 28th. And that one is going to be where Francesco kind of talks about his new role and what he's looking for and what you guys need from him. And we'll also do a little bit of discussion around the new platform, community platform, that is.
Excellent.
It's such a release to have your help with these things, Kristen. We struggle to keep them on schedule.
Yeah, really, really great. So Francesco, maybe you can start off by just quickly introducing yourself and pass it on to one of the others to just go around the table and introduce everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you. Hi all. Probably some of you know me, other not, but I'm Francesco Corti. I am in the community and working on Alfresco since lots of here, and blah blah blah. All the rest are stories, because starting from today, I will be close to you, and I will love to receive feedback. Thank you all for your question, because you are not the first one, and this is not the case, of course. And I still remain member of the community, proudly, I say. And of course, I have done also some posts on my personal blog, but this is all nice stuff, because I'm very excited to stay here to start working from both sides, Alfresco sides and community sides.
Great. It's good to have you on board. But yeah, we want to pass it on to...
Yep.
So Bindu, can you go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Bindu Wevel. I'm the chief architect at Zia Consulting. Have been involved in the community for a few years now, and have most recently been focused on creating a Yeoman generator for Alfresco projects, but also for sort of common subcomponents. So that's what I'm going to talk about today.
Excellent. Axel?
Yeah, I can go next. My name is Axel Faust. I'm from Germany. I was previously working for an Alfresco partner. I have now started my own company, and I'm a founding member of the Order of the Bee, current member of the board as well. And I'm usually heavily involved in customizing or developing add-ons that change Alfresco under the hood, change core features of Alfresco.
Excellent. Boris?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Boris Mejias, holistic system software engineer from CRB, also board member of the Order of the Bee and founder of the organization. The term holistic actually referred to my conviction that when you are dealing with system administration, you are concerned with the fundamental interconnectedness of all things. And this is why the project that I'm doing is monitoring several stuff that trying to find some matches together to understand why the system behave and how it's doing. So that's me.
All right. And Sujay?
Yep, my name is Sujay Pillai, and I work as an Alfresco consultant for a company named Jebel in Malaysia. I've worked on the Alfresco FSTR web application for this hackathon, and that's what I'm going to speak on today.
All right. And we should have Ian right on the panel as well, but he's having some connectivity issues, so he may join in later. We should maybe also expect Marcus from the community, but he's not here. But anyways, we may have a few guys joining in later, but yeah. So I just realized I didn't actually tell you guys what my new role is now that Francesco's on board. So I am officially now product manager for developer platform, also looking after the APIs, but product manager developer platform. So everything from the application development framework, SDKs, REST APIs, Java APIs, I look after all of these things from a product point of view. So if you have any concerns about that, please come and talk to me. I'm very keen on getting feedback. So without further ado, Richard, can you tell us a bit more about the Global Virtual Hackathon and just spend a minute on it? And Axel, if you want to chip in on, I know you've done a great job at helping arrange it this year. Just tell us a bit about what the history is and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, fantastic. So this is our third annual Global Virtual Hackathon. Most of the panel members have attended all of them, and it's a lot of fun. It's a really casual event. It's not a competitive sort of hackathon, it's a collaborative sort of hackathon. So people just during a certain day, 24 hours, starting in early business time in Australia and going to end of day in LA, so 30-something hours, everybody joins the IRC channel and has a conversation about what you're working on and ask for, give each other help. We also had a Google Hangout open. So I spent most of the day doing Jive community updates that I've been meaning to do relate to our open source projects and organizing things, and also dealt with a bunch of bugs that were submitted to Alfresco. So kind of day job stuff, but I was also able to help out and hear conversation. Everybody is there working during the day. So it's a great time to socialize, it's a great time to banter, and I learned a lot just listening to other people's projects. So hope everybody joins us next year.
Yeah, and it's also a good opportunity for those people that could not attend Alfresco conferences or the BCon in person to actually work with other members of the community. This is the reason why we do a virtual global hackathon, so that we can embrace all the community, not just those that can afford to make the trip to a conference location.
Yeah, and I want to say that my first hackathon, a global virtual hackathon, was 3 years ago. I flew out to Brussels to meet up with Boris and Lanre and a bunch of other people. In Francesco, you were there as well in Brussels. We had a great time. So when we do the next hackathon, I strongly suggest if you can get 10 people in a room, I will make sure we send you some swag and some pizzas and pay a beer or something, whatever you guys want to hang out. It's just a great opportunity to be social and have a great time. So,
or maybe even send an engineer, because that time and last year also we have Philippe Dubois here, who nicely traveled to be present and then help technically as much as possible. So if you get a room with hackers, it's a good chance that Alfresco might provide some support.
Absolutely, we'll support it in any ways. And we should start, if we have time by the end of this call, I strongly suggest we start talking about when the next hackathon should be. So Anyways, we have lots of demos to cover, and we have an agenda. So Bindu, you're up first on the agenda of people to present. So tell us a bit about what you did and the things you worked on and everything. So over to you, Bindu.
I think I have everything set.
Yes.
So basically, a year ago, last hackathon, we basically started on this project for this Yeoman generator, which is a command line tool that wraps the Maven SDK a little bit for creating projects, but then it also has a bunch of tools for creating things like actions and behaviors. So I'm going to just give a quick demo of that. Basically, this year we just we worked through our issue backlog, so fixed a few issues, added a couple little minor features. So it wasn't nearly as exciting for us as it was the first year, where we were like, really breaking ground. But we have a pretty mature project these days with 5 or 10 contributors. We have all of the automated build infrastructure and commit information on GitHub and so forth. So the GitHub page is github.com Bindu generator Alfresco. So this is just a complete open source project. Even though most of the people working on it are from Zia so far, we've had contributions from all over the world. And basically, I'm going to just run you all through a very quick example of how you might use this. So you can see here I have an empty directory. I'm going to run Alfresco, and that's not going to work. That's awesome. Let's see, use system. Okay, we'll run Alfresco. And basically, it's going to say, hey, which version of the SDK do you want to use? And the reason you might want to choose different versions is because currently the SDK is very tied to specific versions of Alfresco. Also, the 2.2.0 SDK, which supports Alfresco 5.1, does not work with Spring Loaded. So I'm going to select 2.1.1 for now. Just I find that Spring Loaded stuff is helpful. The new JRebel stuff would be even better. Whoever's not talking, can you mute, please? So now basically what's going to happen is we're going to be kind of run through a series of questions, and you can see here it's asking me, do you want to use a basic or advanced structure? And hey, what is basic or advanced? Well, it explains it right here. So basic is a structure that looks a lot like what you get out of the SDK, and then advanced adds some more stuff, basically around if you want to have multiple source amps in your project. It's going to help you do that in a nice organized way. So I'm going to go ahead and allow that. And then this is kind of the standard questions you get from Maven. So group ID, artifact ID, version, package. And then also, do you want community or enterprise? If you select enterprise, it's going to go update the runner with the enterprise flag. And also some of our other scripts that we include. I'll go ahead and select community for now. This, by default, the SDK puts the source amps in the root of the project. I prefer to have them in a subfolder just to kind of keep things more organized. So we have this option to remove the top level source amps, and then we can add our own in the more organized area. So we'll go ahead and do that. So now if we take a look at the project, it looks like SDK, except there's a few extra things in here. We have run without spring loaded. We have debug.sh, which is like run.sh, but actually uses the Maven debug, so it listens on port 8000. We have this source template. So basically, we took the generated repo and share source amps, and we copied them in here. And now if we want to make if we want to add some source amps, since we don't have any, we can say a source amp is basically one where we can write code. A local amp is like an amp file that we're just storing in our project. A remote amp is an amp file that's stored in a Maven repository somewhere, and I'll show you the common amps in a second. So we'll create a repo and a share amp. We'll just select the defaults, and it's putting stuff into the POM files and so forth. So that's just gone off and created source amps, both repo and share, and we could create more, right? So if we want to have multiples, we can have those. And it's creating them under customizations. So basically in here you can see we now have 2 source amps. We also have the amps in the amps share folder. That's where we would put local amps. We can Alfresco amp. We can say, oh, I want to add some common amps, and in this case I'll add the JavaScript console and Uploader Plus. This will offer different records management amps depending on which version of Alfresco you're using or of the SDK, whether you're using community or enterprise. I'm not going to include that for now. So now I've just by doing that, it's automatically included those amps into the project, and I don't have to do anything else. We can, for example, say let's create an action, or let's create a web script. We can create an action, a behavior, a web script, or a model. I'll create a repo web script, and we'll just call it accounting. Package is org Alfresco, that's fine. We'll do Java and JavaScript. Declarative web script as the base. We'll have it actually generate 4 web scripts, 1 for each method. And we'll generate FTL files for all of this stuff. We'll just select the default kind, accounting, description, URL, accounting. Any is fine. HTML is the default. We'll say you can just run it as user, and we'll say transaction is required, read write. Notice with all of these questions, I've got sections of the documentation and then also links to the documentation. A lot of times it's very confusing when you're creating stuff to know what a specific setting is. So we've tried to kind of incorporate that in here directly. And in fact, I'm just going to try and select all of the defaults here. Lifecycle none. Should we enable form multi-part? I'm sorry, there's a lot of questions for web scripts because there's lots of options. So I don't know if you see that, but it basically just created like 50 files in order to create 4 web scripts. And it's created all the different FTL files, the property files for localization, the Java file, the JavaScript file. So that's kind of at a high level what we're doing. And then we can just run .sh, and it'll spin this all up, and it will have our web scripts, it'll have the JavaScript console, and our customizations. So that's at a really high level the kind of stuff we can do. If you just Alfresco help, it's going to give you a little bit of a summary of what some of the sub-generators are. So we have actions, behaviors, models, and web scripts. And we're obviously wanting to add a lot more to that, especially around share and jobs and all sorts of other things. Thanks.
Excellent. Very interesting stuff that you're working on. I've been impressed with the work you've done to a point where we want to include this in the SDK. So we're working on SDK 3.0, and I really want to have this as a feature of the SDK out of the box. So we're working with Bindu to figure out how we can leverage that contribution and how we can make it part of it while Bindu still maintains ownership of his project. But we're working on it. We don't have it yet, but it is one of the next big items on the list. We just need to figure out the testing story. And but yeah, good stuff. Really, really good stuff. And this just takes care of all the tedious things you do. So I'm really excited about the generator. So great stuff.
Thank you.
Any questions for Bindu before we move on? I don't see anything on IRC.
I have one. Bindu, would you like to explain a little bit more which version of Alfresco did you test or did you use, even in enterprise or community edition?
Well, so it works with enterprise and community, and it works back through to the, I believe, 2.0.0 SDK, which means Alfresco 5.0. And I've tested it with the versions that the default community and enterprise versions for each of the SDKs that have come out, basically. So there's over 400 unit tests. You know, they're all run with Travis CI. So those all run on community. They don't run on enterprise. But those tests don't actually spin Alfresco up, right? They stamp out a project and make sure that the project is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great stuff. Axel, you want to go next?
Yeah, okay. So what I and what Markus and myself did on the hackathon is a continuation of a talk I gave with Oksana at the last Beacon, and it was about top 10 missing features and ways to add them. And one of the missing features that we highlighted in our lightning talk was the Alfresco support tools add-on. This is an add-on that was developed by Antonio Soler from Alfresco and is available for enterprise customers, or better yet, it's available for everyone, but it's only compatible with the enterprise edition of Alfresco. And what we did in our hackathon was to liberate these support tools from its enterprise shackles and provide it for community edition users as well. So everyone knows the Alfresco administration console that's been available since Alfresco 5.0D. And we have now added a couple of tools from the Alfresco support tools add-on to the community edition as add-on admin console as well. For example, by default, only the Node browser is available, and we have added all of these tools to the console. For example, we can look and modify the logging settings that are active in the current system. So we can change any kind of logger that's been defined in the default Alfresco logging configuration, but we can also see all the unconfigured loggers and change those configurations, which is kind of useful if you want to know if there's a specific logger for a specific use case. The default file doesn't list them. Here you can see how many loggers there actually are in Alfresco that you could configure. We also support tailing the Alfresco log file live without using JMX. So for example, if I just increase the time width here and refresh my web scripts in the backend and come back to the screen, it should put the output that's provided by this operation in a couple of seconds to the logging file. So for example, here I, for some reason, have a script, but you can see basically that all the logging that it's done in alfresco.log is also available on the web side. So we don't have to go to the server. You can just open a simple browser, access the administration console, and view the log output from there. It's automatically collected in backend and discarded after a certain amount of time or a certain amount of events have been logged. It's also possible to, for example, view the system performance or view some metrics about the system performance. For example, memory allocation as well as CPU usage. Here in this case, I have a high system CPU usage because I'm using the Hangout plugin, and this is always a hog on the CPU. Additionally, you can see what threads are currently running and what they are doing to pinpoint and analyze some performance issues you may be having or some log issues that you may be encountering in the system. So I see that here there's a thread that's currently doing a web script execution, and I can use that to analyze my system. There are a couple of tools that we have migrated. Basically, we've done everything from the Alfresco support tools add-on that does not rely on JMX, and that is not already covered by other tools. For example, we have not migrated the profiling and CPU sampling tools yet. And this toolset, of course, could be expanded by community members to provide additional tools in the future. Currently, this is available in my personal GitHub repository, but I'm planning on moving this to the Order of the Bee, so it's community-owned add-on that anyone can expand on. And yeah, so far for this add-on, unfortunately, you can't see that much in terms of action, but it's good to view some of the details, some of the state of the system and analyze problems.
All right.
Okay.
So there's a question on our C channel. I'm just trying to figure out. Douglas says that he didn't catch the start of the explanation, but is running against community instance or enterprise instance.
It's basically for any instance. It's community compatible. It doesn't use any enterprise edition APIs, so it can be run on community as well as enterprise edition. But of course, on enterprise edition, you can also use the Alfresco official Alfresco support tools add-on that I think Richard was talking during the hackathon about being in the process of being productized by Alfresco itself. So there may be some additional support for that add-on that you can get with the community edition add-on that we provide.
Richard, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was just going to say Axel's correct. And in fact, that's one of the values of the hackathon is when Axel was working on this, we're like, oh, we've been doing some stuff internally that we've just been too busy and hadn't made public yet. And so we were able to publish a new version of the support tools out on a GitHub with our recent changes so that hopefully they can be used and collaborate. And then at some point in the next little while, we want to bring that back into the product. We're still working on exactly which team will do that and how to schedule it.
Okay, so Axel, where do you want to take this project? I mean, it has a ton of potential. Do you have like ideas of things you want to implement here that you didn't get to? Something you could have other people help work with? Do you have a backlog? That's essentially what I'm asking.
I don't have a backlog yet, but I discussed, or I actually had the same discussion with Peter Lofgren this today via IRC. There's going to be a backlog of tools that might be interesting. If you've looked at my screen share, you might have seen one or two tools that are not available in the default Alfresco system. For example, I have a custom tool built for myself that displays statistics about cache usage in Alfresco, how much of the cache is filled and how much space it's taking. Those could be tools that could be added in the future. There's a couple of metrics that you can extract from an Alfresco system that you could display, for example, workflow instances and stuff like this, that usually would need complex interaction with the workflow console to get.
All right.
I'm going to draft the backlog in a couple of days when I have time.
Excellent. Good stuff. I'm really happy to see this come along and have decent support tools for community edition. That's really great. Richard, it looks like you're saying something, but you're on mute.
I just came off mute to say, and if you're looking to hire a new Alfresco consultant, Axel's right on, just join the market, right? So I know most of these guys are willing to, but it's just pretty cool to see the work that Axel did.
Yep. Next up is Boris.
Yes, before I start, I have a complaint, actually. So next time you do the schedule, we should do it from less cool to coolest, and not the other way around, because it's going to be too difficult to present after Axel and Bindu. So
I'm sure yours will be just as exciting.
Thanks. So what I'm working on is, it started because I'm going to share my screen now. Screen share. We had an issue with a server that was creating too many connections to PostgreSQL, the database. But Alfresco was thinking that it has only 30 connections open to the database, but PostgreSQL was showing 480, which is way too much. So we have this discrepancy. So that's why I decided to build this tool to monitor at both sides, at Alfresco and at PostgreSQL. And also then I started to add other things. So the project is called Order of the Asgard because it sounds like Asgard, it's cool. And it's Alfresco Guardian. And the idea is that it's going to be moved to Order of the B if things goes well. So what does it do? So I have here, let me show you the, we are enterprise customer, so I can access actually the GMX stuff. I don't know how to do this stuff in the communities setting, but this is why the work of Axel is important, because he will be able to provide the information that I'm monitoring through REST API, for instance, and not through the GMX. So if you can see my screen, you can see I use the GMX terminal jar, and from the Python script, I just get some of the information. So to bootstrap the monitoring system, you have to configure two things. This is the Tomcat thing that you want to monitor. you say check true or false. If you just want to monitor the database, you put this one to false. And the output, which is either a CSV or just standard output. So the standard output is just for, I say, now for the demo. And the CSV is because the monitoring information, you can send it to either Zabbix or BSM or some of these tools that are used for Nagios for monitoring. So as you can see for the configuration of the GMX here on the bottom, this is how I connect to Alfresco through GMX. I just use the monitor role, so not the control role. The password is already changed, by the way. It was used to be changed as up. It's already changed. And so I'm not changing anything. So I'm just gathering information. That's why just having a REST API would be enough, actually. So let's see how this thing works then. So when I start Alfsguard, I have two options, start or stop. So it's going to do two processes. Each one is going to monitor the database, and the other one is going to monitor the Tomcat thread pool. So I have every connection goes with the Tomcat thread pool. So as you can see, this one is just a header. Okay, let me see what I can do in there.
Boris, just a quick caution. When you're typing, Google Hangouts will try and mute and unmute your microphone. So don't talk too much while you're typing if you're either typing out loud or yeah, it does weird things. So just it cuts off it a little bit. So yeah.
Don't type out loud. Now let me see. This is not working apparently. So if I do follow the DB. Give me a sec. Apparently yeah, that's it. Oh, sorry, my connection broke. I need to kill that one. It's just a tunnel so I can connect through the GMX. So now I can do Alfsguard stop. So let's see, PS. Okay, demo effect, of course. All right. Okay. Now this is the CSV file, which looks like information that you can send to any monitoring tool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just check the same file, but the output is nicer. So every 2 seconds is going to try to get how many connections are on the database. Currently, Alfresco thinks that there are 11 connections from a maximum of 175, so it's only using 6.3% of the resources, and only one connection is active. Okay. And the information that I have here is coming from GMX, and this is what is coming directly from Postgres. So then I can see if there's a difference or not. So one test, this is the instance, is I'm just going to upload things. So let's go to the repository. Of course, I'm disconnected. Logged in, test, Alfsguard. Upload a bunch of files, images from Scarcity, of course. Yep. So while it's uploading, we can see that the active connection is going to change. So you see there is 9 active connections and only 8 idle. So it has 17 connections according to Alfresco, but according to Postgres, it only has 11. So then there are some discrepancies sometimes from what Alfresco thinks that it has and what it really is. So this one didn't create that much stuff. I can use this order here and see the log. And I'm going to meanwhile tail the Tomcat thread pool out. This one I missed the head, so let me just do 14. You see, this one is looking at the thread pool. It says that Tomcat has a core of 4 threads. The pool is currently 18, so it grew from 6 when I started monitoring to 18. the largest today is being 18. Okay, active is currently 13. And this is, I'm monitoring both at the same time. And what I'm going to do now, I have a test here, which is going to at the same, voila, ticket, to see whether it has any impact or not. Wait, where's my other thing? So you can see that the pool size actually has some variations in terms of being active or not. So you can keep constantly monitoring everything. I still need to see for the, let me stop this screen share. Oops. This. Okay. So that's it. Yep.
Some really cool things, and even though you said it's not as interesting, I really think it has a lot of potential uses for monitoring and debugging and figuring out what's going on. And you could expand on this to many other things than the DB pool size. Like any GMX metric could be monitored this way, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's the idea. So counting how many users are there, also having like different scenarios where you log in, get users, get sites, and all the information, how much time is taking, all this stuff. So the idea is that when you deploy a new AMP, you can compare your values before the deployment and afterwards, and then you can see whether it's having an effect or not on your performance and all this stuff. So especially, it's kind of a health check, knowing whether your system is doing well or not. And when you reach a certain amount of ratio of your connection of the database, try to do some action on it. Same thing with the Tomcat thread pool, because if the Tomcat is going too large, then you can identify that you need more RAM for your server. So,
Boris, sorry. Just a question. Do you imagine to use this tool? First of all, congratulations for the tool. But do you imagine to use this tool to check the health of your system live? So run it and check. Also, do you imagine to schedule this tool for a certain amount of time, and if something is over or under a threshold, send an email or something, an alert to someone via email or something in a log or something different?
Well, one of our instance is actually connected to Active Directory, and these kind of connections can also be monitored through GMX, and I can see whether there are some losing the synchronization between LDAP or not, that can automatically be restarted. Same thing with the connection to the Office transformer. So if you see that your instance is not able to show the previews because it lost connection with LibreOffice, this thing should be able to automatically start the stuff. So, and
okay.
it's all in Python. So from now on, I decided, I mean, this is just like 150 lines of code, and I can do a lot with that. So I'm not doing any Java and any other future hackathon. Just a statement, just Python stuff.
There was Morgan asked in IRC if the discrepancy between what Alfresco sees and what Postgres sees is because you're polling at different times, that they're not happening at the exact same moment.
Ah, that's a good question. Well, I don't know, because it's only one call that I do, and now GMX, it provides you two values, the idle and the active connections, but it doesn't provide you the size. But it's only one call. When I get the two values, it might be that Alfresco, before returning me the values, it just does it in two steps internally. But it's only one query that I'm doing.
Well, and whether you're querying Postgres at the exact same time you're querying Alfresco.
Okay, but if you see, I mean, the amount of connections in Postgres is very stable. It's only the one that Alfresco that varies because of the sum of these two values.
Interesting.
So that's why I think it is at the size of pulling these two values, idle and active, from Alfresco.
Yeah. But as long as you don't stop the system, you always get a situation where you can have some inconsistency due to timing issues.
True. And what is good to see is, even if you see the discrepancy, how fast it comes back to a stable value again, that's important. I mean, the threshold will be if you have more than 3 or 4, then there's, for a certain amount of time, then there's some issue with your system.
All right, good stuff. Any other questions for Boris? All right. Ian, I think you're on the line now. I had to put you on mute, so you probably need to unmute yourself because there was a bit of an echo at some point. I know you had some connectivity issues, but there we go. Hey, Ian. You're on mute again. I can't unmute him. We see you now, and I think we hear you. No, we don't hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Yes. Excellent. Okay. Hopefully this is going to work with connectivity issues. I've got two projects I'm going to talk about really quickly. So,
and should you introduce yourself really quick, Ian?
Okay. I work at the University of Oxford. I've been working at Alfresco for 6 or 7 years. Spoken at a couple of BCons. It's not the only thing I do, but yeah, one of them. So, first thing I wanted to talk about was the upgrade assistant, which is something I've been working on to try and make it easier when you come to upgrade between versions, to how to tell you what you need to change. So I was hoping that some people might try it against their own amps, etc., but it didn't. I'll try and give you a flavour of what it can do. So at the moment, it mostly works on Java. So this is for one of my projects. So what you can see here is that you see the text file, yeah. So the first one it's showing is I've created a custom username properties decorator. So it's told me that I'm using a custom class, and it's told me that the class that uses that ID has changed between different versions in Alfresco. So you can see here I'm comparing 50B and 51G. So it doesn't tell me anything more sophisticated now, but it does mean I need to have a look and see what's changed and see if I need to update anything. The next thing it does is look at the actual B definitions themselves. So what it tells me here is that for the person service security, that the extra definition here I'm going to need to make work in my customized part. So that's just a taste of what it does, and hopefully people will try it out and log issues against things that are missing from it, or you know, hopefully contribute some stuff. The other one I wanted to talk about was the CMIS store for Dojo. So with Dojo, you can plug it into a lot of you can plug it into a lot of Dojo widgets. And because you can do that, it may, if you've got a Dojo store, what works very nicely is plugging that all into CMIS. So I'll show here that I've got a...
The screen sharing stopped at some point, Ian, so we don't see your screen right now.
Okay.
We don't see your screen right now.
Try it again. Okay, so the idea of this is basically to have a Dojo store that you can connect to any kind of Dojo widget that will work either inside or outside Alfresco. And when it works within Alfresco, you can link it up to iCal. So in the example that I've included in the GitHub project, it's all linked into a dgrid. So that's a table which allows fully editable properties. And so you can look at that. I did a recording of this. Again, the audio quality is quite poor. But if you look at the Writing Dojo CMIS project on GitHub, there's a recording of how it will work and how you can link it up. So you can use the model manager to create a model and then plug in the Dojo CMIS widget to allow you to edit information based on that. Based on that content model, so you can manipulate the artifacts with that custom content model without needing to do any server-side coding.
Yeah, no, I think we have to stop you here. The connection is really bad, and it's hard to make out what you're saying at the end here. It's a bit of...
Let's stop there because it.
So what I'd suggest is that you mentioned you had a recording, but I'd love to invite you back at a later point, or if you could do a recording of the two projects, that would be really awesome to show to the community. I'm really excited about the upgrade assistant that you're doing. I would love to hear more about it. And the Dojo CMIS connector looks interesting as well. And we've just linked the links in the RC channels. So strongly suggest people to go check that out. But if you provide any recordings or anything, description in the YouTube link. All right, I'm sorry to don't worry about the connection, but really interesting stuff, and I want to dig into it and have a look for myself and see what you're doing with the connector and everything. So we have 10 minutes left. Sujay, do you want to go last?
Yeah, sure. So let me share my screen. Do you see my screen now?
Yes, we see it.
Okay. So the thing what I worked on for this hackathon was that I picked up the Alfresco FSTR, that's the file system transfer receiver web application, and converted it into a Docker image. So for the folks who are new to FSTR, just to give you a brief overview, the FSTR application is a standalone web application which allows you to transfer folders and contents from an Alfresco instance to a remote file system. And it uses the replication service and the transfer service which is available in Alfresco. So this is shipped as a zip file along with each release of Alfresco, and you can download it from the Alfresco downloads page. And once you download this zip file and extract it, this is the default structure what you see for a FSTR application. So let me just demo you how it works on locally. So what you need to do is that you need to execute a jar file which is available over here. And to do that, I use this command java-jar file transfer. So what it does is that it spins up a Tomcat instance on your local machine with the port 9090, which is the default port where the FSTR application listens on. So while this gets started, let me shift to my Alfresco instance. So for this to work, you need to have 3 settings on your local Alfresco instance. One, you need to define your target where you will be copying your files from the Alfresco. So for that, there is something called a predefined folder in Alfresco where you need to navigate, and you need to create a folder over here. And this is a special folder of the type transfer target, which has some properties associated with it. So if you see, I have set this to local host because my FSTR application is running locally, the default port 9090, and this is the endpoint which does all the magic for us. So I have this one. So that's my target. Then onto the admin console in Alfresco, you click on the replication jobs and you need to define a job which does the transfer of files from your Alfresco instance to the remote file system. So I have already configured a job for it. And the third item you need to configure is you need to have a folder which would be the source from where the contents would be copied. So let me just upload some files over here. So say I'm uploading these 2 files and I need to transfer these files to the FSTR. So what I would do is, let me just check whether that, okay. So if you see, the application has come up and it's listening on port 9090. So if you go to the job, what you have configured, and click on the run job, so it executes the job for you and it says the job has successfully completed. So if you come to the folder where I showed you, where I unzipped the FSTR application, it has created some default folders for you where the files is stored for you on the local file system. So if you see, I uploaded 2 files in the Alfresco and executed the job, and I have those files on my local file system. So that's how a local FSTR application works. So what I did is that I converted this into a Docker image. Let me just show you how the Docker file looks. So what I did is that I picked up a existing Docker image from the Docker Hub, which is based on the Alpine image and has an Oracle JDK in it. And then I'm mounting a volume into my container called app and copying the FSTR application into that folder. And to this, I'm exposing the port 9090, which is the default where the FSTR listens on. And I'm adding an entry point into my Docker image to start with the FSTR application. So that's how the Docker file is defined for this. And let me just switch to, so I have this image already built on my machine, and it's called, I've tagged it as Sujay Pillai Alfresco FSTR. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to run a container on my machine, which by default would start up on 9090 in the container, and I'm binding that port onto my local machine as a 7070. And what I'm doing is that to view the contents within the container, I'm mounting a local folder called this into my container, which is the root directory where the files arrives in a FSTR application. So let me just start it. So I have just started my Docker container, and let me show you the folder where the files will be arriving. So if you see, it doesn't have any files over here. So let me just show you. So I have another job which I have configured for my container. Let me just show you this one. So if you see the properties, I am using the port 7070, and I already binded the port 7070 onto my local machine from the Docker container. So that's the reason I'm giving the port as 7070 over here. The rest of the things remains the same. So let me execute the job, and if you see, it's running. Okay. So if you see, the two files just came up over here from within the container. That's what you're seeing. So that's it, how the container works, FSTR container works. Let me just show you another quick demo. Let me upload more files. So say that I'm uploading more files over here. Okay. And then what I'm doing is that executing the job on my container to copy the files into the container. So if you see, all the files came in. And let me just start another Docker image, which is a web application, and it is kind of a photo gallery for you. So what this application is doing is that it's mounting the same folder where I copied the image into a Docker volume called images. So let me start it up. So if you see, the application is coming up, and if everything goes well, we can see a gallery. No, it's coming up.
Well, that comes up, Sujay. One of your project goals in the projects and teams page in the community was to run all this on Azure. Did you give that a shot? How does Docker work on Azure?
Actually, I didn't get permission from my business people to spin up a container over there because I was using my Office account for that. So sorry, I couldn't demo that part to you. It is definitely going to work because it's working on my local in a container.
That makes sense. I didn't realize Azure had good Docker support. So very educational. Thanks.
Yep. So so if you can see that I just spinned up a web application which is consuming the same files which arrived from the FSTR, and that's some of the images from our Beacon 2016.
Very nice. Question came in from IRC about the syncing. Does it work two ways, or is it only from Alfresco to the file system, or does it also take from the file system into Alfresco?
No, it's only one way. It's from the Alfresco to a file system.
All right.
And another question for me, if you think also to export, let me say, or to sync the metadata, because it could be a nice thing to have also the metadata on the file system for actions and so on.
I think so. The default application, it doesn't provide this functionality. Maybe we can do a customization on top of it and provide that.
The FSTR can put the metadata into a zip file alongside the content.
Oh, okay.
Alrighty. Okay. So we're almost out of time. Any other questions for Sujay?
I have a question, a short question. So you use the Alpine container as a base. Can you use that one also for Alfresco, or for Alfresco you need something larger? Have you tried that?
No, I've not tried that, but maybe I can give it a shot and let you know.
Yeah, because I talked to an engineer and told me that if we want to still having support, we need to use an image which has, which is supported in the support stack. But it will be interesting to know whether you can have this for a development or testing environment, which is just much lighter kind of Docker container.
So this Alpine image itself with the Oracle JDK, it's like 172 megabytes. And when I add the FSTR into it, it becomes kind of 260 MBs.
Okay.
So last question for me is it common, Sujay, for you to work 30 hours straight when you're interested in a project? Because I was impressed with your stamina.
Yep. I was more interested with the talks, what we had going on with Bindu and you, especially with Excel also involved in it.
It was an enjoyable time. I really enjoyed being with everybody. I look forward to next fall. Now that we've started BCon in the spring, then I guess it makes sense for us to keep doing the Global Virtual Hackathon in the fall.
Yes, I think so, because then we have everything in all of the hemispheres. We have one event at a certain time that's acceptable. And also spread it out so that people don't get fatigued with hackathons.
Well, I look forward to hacking with everybody in April at BCon and next fall online.
Alrighty. So with that being said, I think it's time to wrap this up. And thank you guys so much for coming on to show all your demos, and thank you for all the participation and the hard work you put into it. I know it's not easy, but for some people it's easy. You just get all soaked up in the atmosphere and everything. I always enjoy a good hackathon. So I want to thank you guys for being here, and everyone else who participated who couldn't demo today. We'll try and collect recordings and demos from the people who couldn't make it to the panel today, and we'll update the wiki page with links to everything. I'll be sure when we finish the stream that I'll collect all the links for all the GitHub repositories and put them in the description on the YouTube video. So yeah, it will all be in the wiki page and the new community. With that,
I should clarify for Roy that when I say next fall, that's very Northern Hemisphere centric. I mean next spring for all of our. We did have a few participants from Australia, so.
Excellent. So thank you so much, guys, and see you next time.
In Brazil. Yep.
Bye.
See you.
See you guys.
Bye.